God is a good God, and there's just so much that He does, and sometimes we have no idea why He's asking us to do something or what His plan is, but I just find that throughout my life, one thing I've learned, and I'm still always learning, is that God has a plan, and it's the perfect plan. So from the time that God told me that I was going to become a missionary someday, I was just planning to do overseas stuff. And once I took that trip to India, I was set. I just wanted to be a missionary. And so in my second year of residency, there was an opportunity for a month where we could go anywhere in the world and do a rotation. And everyone assumed I would do something international. But when it came time to do something, I just felt like God was saying no. And so even the faculty was surprised when I decided to just work inside my residency system at a different clinic. And I ended up at a clinic, and it was okay. You know, I was learning a lot and stuff, but I didn't know why I was there. So one day I see this patient, and she has abdominal pain, and she'd just been to the ER, and when I looked over all her records, once I got them, she'd already had an ultrasound, she'd already had a bunch of tests, and soon the test results came back negative, and I was just thinking, because I was going to see her back again once I had reviewed everything, and I was just thinking, what in the world could be wrong with her? And the only thing I could think of was maybe sexual abuse or physical abuse or something like that was going on, because there wasn't anything else that I hadn't already asked her about or ruled out. And so when she came in, I was talking to her, and I just mentioned, or I just asked her, have you been abused? And then she started telling me about her past and how she had been sexually abused by her family. And then she started telling me about her husband and how he was physically violent with her as well. And then I, of course, I had to ask her if he was violent with her children. And she said yes. And she started telling me that right before her abdominal pain started, her 3-year-old boy had accidentally peed on the floor or urinated on the floor instead of in the toilet. And the husband had taken out his belt, and he was going to whip him with it. And she had gotten in the way, and that's when her stomach pain had started. And so, of course, that meant I had to make a CPS referral, and I'd never done that before. And if you're calling Child Protective Services on someone, you feel kind of bad. Well, I felt kind of bad since it was my first time, and I felt like, what is this mom going to think? Like, she just trusted me and told me all this, and now I'm going to call CPS. But anyways, I told her, and after I talked to them, she was actually so relieved. And then she started telling me how she had actually been a foster child, and she'd been taken in by a family, and then eventually she had become a missionary and gone to, I believe it was Belize or somewhere in South America, and she'd met this man who had this powerful ministry, and she ended up marrying him, and everyone thought he was the greatest guy in the world, but when he was at home, he would beat her. And one day, basically she got so scared that she would end up dead, and no one would ever even look at him because of how popular he was in the Christian community. And so she ended up asking that they come back to America. And so now they were back in America, and she was hoping that people would help in America or see things differently. But even at the church, when she talked to the pastor, he said, you shouldn't, I mean, look at how God is using him, and if you say anything, it's just going to ruin your testimony. And so basically, she was in fear for her children's well-being, her life, and no one was supporting her in this. And so anyways, within less than a week, but maybe in a month, CPS had worked, and they had gotten her out of that house. They had put her, so she'd been living with her husband in some beat up old apartment where even the windows were all boarded in, she got a 5-bedroom house where she and her children could stay. Her husband had a restraining order against him, so he couldn't even come close to them anymore, and their whole life changed. And you know, maybe that's the only reason I went to that place, and that's why God kept me there. But it was just so nice to see. Like, I met up with the kids a couple of months later. The whole family came over during Christmas time, and they were just so happy now. The mom was telling me how her oldest son had started to become so angry. Like, at one time, the husband had just taken him and just slammed him against a wall, and slowly she had started seeing like all these traits that he had coming into him, and she was so afraid he was going to turn out just like her father. But now that they had moved away from there, like, he was back to normal again, or starting to be back to normal, and their life was just so different, and she was so happy. And so I just want to encourage you that if you are in an abusive relationship, God does not want that. Even her Christian pastor told her that she needed to not do anything and just be a good wife, and that's not true. If you are being abused, you need to get out of that relationship. It is not from God, and it is not a healthy relationship, and God does not want you to be in there, because you are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and so God doesn't want any harm to come to his temple. And nobody in leadership should be abusive, and that's biblical, and you can read that in the New Testament when it talks about what an elder is supposed to be like. And so there's so much help available in America, and not so much in all other countries, honestly, but in America, definitely. If you're watching this and that is you, please get help, and they will help you through it all. Number two, if you are in Christian ministry and somebody comes to you and they're telling you that they've been abused, please support them. It's your duty as a human being. Forget being a Christian. It's your duty as a human being. If that was your child, or if that was your sister, what would you want done in their life? Would you want them to be abused? And a lot of abuse ends up in death, and so just remember that. And then number three, just know, wherever God puts you, there's a reason, and it may not be where you want to be at that time, but there's always a reason, and you're always going to be really happy in hindsight that you were there. So just enjoy the moment, and know that God is working out his plan.